This trip started with a return to one of my favorite spots, Puerto Morelos. My sister was there and our vacations overlapped, so it was fun to show off my Spanish. There's something very grounding about the quiet beach clubs and that classic town square vibe of Puerto Morelos. But the real highlight was heading into Colonia. That's the non-local, or non-tourist side of town. And I saw a band with a Spanish-speaking friend. They were playing Money for Nothing by Dire Straits, and while my friends knew all the lyrics and kind of the song, they had no idea what it actually meant. So I was able to translate the song for them right there in the bar, and they were floored to kind of understand what the story was behind the music. After soaking in the sun in Puerto Morelos, it was time to move, and my Spanish really saved my legs this time. Navigating Riviera Maya is a breeze if you know the secret, which is the ADO bus. I could clearly communicate with the ticket staff, and I understood that the buses from Tulum were leaving the Alterna station instead of the Turista station. So that one quick conversation saved me from a very confusing 10-block walk in the heat. Also in Tulum, I chose to stay in Centro, and I did that specifically to force myself to practice my Spanish. I spent days cruising to different locations in Tulum on the bike paths and riding around, but the effort really paid off. There were several bartenders and vendors who gave me big compliments on my progress. And in a tourist-heavy town where most people are trying to speak English, that rapport goes a long ways. At Taqueria Honorio, I chatted with the waitress, and I found out that they start slow cooking that legendary meat at 3 in the morning. Plus, being able to navigate the menu in Spanish saved me some major confusion because they had run out of a few items that day. Later, at the Rooftop, my waiter, Alfonso, and we had a great conversation. One of the things was I went to pay for my drinks, and they didn't have change. But we were able to work out the logistics entirely in Spanish without missing a beat. Next stop, Playa del Carmen. This leg of the trip was very special because I finally got to meet up with my Spanish tutor, Fernanda, and her daughter, Barbara. Now, the rule for the conversation that night was only in Spanish. We couldn't speak in English. So it was fun to catch up with her because I hadn't seen her in about a year or so. But as the trip went on, my Spanish really came alive. I had a long, fascinating conversation with a fellow traveler from Argentina who was there with his teenage daughters. We didn't just stick to travel tips. We covered the war in Iran and debated the presidents of both U.S. and Argentina, which is kind of an interesting conversation. And it's those high-level exchanges that made all the hours of study worth it. For a different type of immersion, I headed to the Red Room. While some bartenders like to practice their English with me, most preferred to stick in Spanish. And I was generally the only gringo in the bar. It got to the point where I was actually getting into the chisme, or the gossip with the staff. And if you prefer outdoors, Zenzi Beach Club is another one that's right next door, and it's another place for live music. Those connections at the bar were just highlights of my night. I couldn't leave without one last stop to El Fogon for some authentic tacos pastor and a bunch of places for great breakfast on the beach. But this trip proved that translating rock songs to debating international politics, Spanish can open doors that stay closed for most tourists. Thanks for joining me on this journey.